What's up, English 218? Greetings from VZ Maine. Quick video here to talk to you about the analysis portion of your summary and analysis assignment. Before I get into that, though, I do want to thank you for your diligence so far this semester. I do realize that the beginning of the semester can be relatively monotonous and a little bit mundane because you're writing about things that really aren't that interesting to you, but I do think there's some really important learning outcomes from that. Chief among them, I hope that you feel confident reading things that are really difficult and sometimes out of your area of expertise. Moving forward, though, you'll be writing and reading primarily about things that you're really interested in, so that should represent a pretty good change in the course for you, and you should find that a lot more engaging and a lot more interesting. I do hope, though, that you feel more confident and that you feel capable of summarizing even the most complex information, and that's really what this is all about. So moving into the analysis portion of your summary and analysis assignment, I feel pretty confident that most people here have the skills it takes to summarize academic literature. But I do want to reinforce one thing. There are 4 key questions that your summary should always answer. What were the researchers trying to figure out? How did they try to figure it out? That is, what types of methods did they deploy at the question? What did they find out? So what did the results tell them? And then really importantly, and I want you to keep this in mind, is what does it mean? So what are the implications, the practical and theoretical and intellectual implications of this research? Does it mean that we're going to change the way that we do things or change clinical guidelines? Does it mean that there's more research to be done? Does it change the way that we understand a particular topic or the way that we study a particular topic? And so there usually are implications for research. It usually pushes our knowledge on a topic forward or raises some new and interesting questions that we need to pursue. So those are really important things for you to consider in your summaries. As it pertains to the analysis portion of this, I want you to keep 2 things in mind. Okay? I want you to feel comfortable raising questions about research, and I want you to be resourceful when you engage in research. So the second part of this is just trying to instill an ethic in you where you become a critical consumer of knowledge and information. Not all knowledge and information is created equally, and so we need to find ways to interrogate that knowledge so that we can truly contextualize and understand it. And that's really what this is all about. When it comes to being resourceful, what that principally means is do your homework. Okay? We have the power of the internet and Google at our fingertips, and we should use it to better understand the research that we're reading. So what do I mean by that practically? I mean Google the authors, find out where they work, who they're affiliated with, find out what else they've published, find out where their expertise or their specialization lies. Google the study itself and find out how it's been reacted to by other researchers. Find out if it's been picked up by popular media, that is, has it been published about in the newspaper, has it been published about in magazines or on the news. Okay, these are things that we can do to better understand what other people are saying about the research and the impact that the research has had more broadly conceived. And this can be really generative. Use the Google Scholar trick that I showed you where you can find out who has cited the article since it's been published. These are all things that you can do just really quickly and easily to find out a little bit more about the article. You can also Google the journal that the article was published in to find out how well respected or received the journal is. You can take a look at the impact factor of the journal and find out sort of what the standing of the journal is relative to other journals. But what's most important is that you ask questions, that you look at the decisions the researchers had to make in creating this research project and see if those are sound questions or sound assumptions or sound decisions that they're using. And that's really what this is all about. There is no such thing as a perfect research project. Okay? There are practical and theoretical and methodological limitations to all research. Sometimes that's related to the population that's being studied. Unfortunately, we can't survey or we can't research and we can't perform clinical trials with gargantuan samples. And so sometimes we have to make decisions based on practical considerations. For instance, some of your research studies might use what's called a convenience sample, and that means that they're using populations that are conveniently located to them. Obviously, the gold standard is to use a representative sample of people that's randomized and that's controlled and all of these sorts of things, but sometimes we can't, so it's just important to acknowledge that. Or sometimes a population might be skewed in a particular direction based on demographics. For instance, it may study a particular socioeconomic class, or it may study a particular race, or it may study a particular gender or sex. These are things just that I want you to be aware of and raise questions about. Maybe the research works from certain assumptions that you don't think are that sound. I don't need you to have the answers to all of these questions. I just want you to have the wherewithal to ask the questions. And so I want you to look at the decisions that these researchers had to make and question them and figure out, are those the best assumptions to start from. And so that's really what this critical analysis component is all about, is being resourceful and asking questions. Those questions can also be about certain assumptions that they make or conclusions that they draw from their research. And so it's important for you to think about, are there other ways to interpret their findings? Are there other ways of understanding this? And again, if you're blending your willingness to ask questions about the research with your resourcefulness, these answers will often materialize on their own because other people are asking the same questions. And so that's really what this assignment is all about. I don't expect you to write several pages of, really critical analysis of this, but I do expect you to have a few pertinent, relevant questions that you can raise about your study, because again, all studies have limitations. And it could be that you think that the researchers in the future could use different methods, or for instance, one thing that we find is that because research is time and resource intensive, and that includes human resources, a lot of times research takes place over a relatively short period of time, when we know that we probably would get more generative, more useful answers or insights if we studied something over a longer period of time. So sometimes, and that's called longitudinal studies, when we look at stuff over a long period of time. So that can be a question that you raise. What would happen if we studied this instead of over a year? What if we studied it over 5 years? And again, it's just looking at all of the decisions and all of the assumptions that the researchers have made and asking questions about them. And again, you do not have to have the answers to those questions. You can write a really excellent critical analysis of your study simply by raising questions. And I think that's really important. And what that creates is a disposition towards research where we don't just take everything at face value, we don't just take it and run with it, but we sit with it, we look at it, and we look at all the various contingent factors related to that research so that we, again, can just better contextualize it so that we are making sound decisions based on that research. And that's really what this is all about. So if there's two things you remember from this mini lecture, it's be resourceful, so use the resources that you already have and that are natural to you, and two, ask questions. Okay? And if you need support on this particular part of the assignment, please reach out to me and I'd be happy to help you with it. And you know that you can reach me through text, through phone, and through email, and I'll be around. And again, thanks a lot for all your work so far.